Okay, we're going over lecture 39. We're going over lectures. We're going over lesson 79, okay, which is going to be piecewise functions. Before we get started with that, I do want us to do a little bit of work here on our bell ringers. Okay, so first off, parent functions we need to remember. If I have x squared, that's my parabola. X cubed, that's my little snake thing. Square root of x is going to be my little nub. Cubed root of x is going to be my sideways snake thing. What else am I missing? 1 over x. Okay, that's my asymptotes. Oh, an absolute value of x. I think those are the main ones you're going to see. I don't think you'll see an exponential function on those, okay? But you do want to remember all of those parent functions because these parent functions are going to show up when we do our piecewise functions. So first one that I have up here, I've got a square root. So my parent function for this is 0, 0, 1, 1, and 4, 2. Okay? So there's my parent function. And then I have a plus 5. That plus 5 is on the inside. Remember, inside equals horizontal. Okay, so this is going to be a left to right shift. And if I'm doing a left to right, remember we always do the opposite. So this ends up shifting 5 spots over to the left. So my 3 points all shift over 5 spots. Okay, so that is my square root function. Next, I have an f of x equals 3. Now, this one looks weird, f of x equals 3. Remember, your f of x and y are interchangeable. So this is just saying y equals 3. Okay, y equals 3, that's hard to remember. Is it the horizontal one? Is it the vertical one? The way I always think about it is, that means that our y coordinates have to be 3. So 0, 3, 3 would be a y coordinate. 1, 3, negative 4, 3. All of those points there have y values of 3. So that means all of those points are on the line. So negative 4, 3, 0, 3, 1, 3. Okay, I can see if I look at those 3 points, that's not going to be a vertical line running through all those. That's going to have to be a horizontal line. Okay, so that is a horizontal line running through 3. How did I get those 3 points up there on the top right? I just made up 3 points that had a y value of 3. Okay. So remember your parent functions. There's 6 of them there. Remember how to do your shifts. Okay, that's going to be important for what we are talking about now, and that is piecewise functions. Okay, so what are piecewise functions? Well, piecewise functions are pieces of functions that are put together to make one. Okay, for example, you guys may want to draw this, but I'm not going to really spend time to explain why it is the way it is. We'll talk about that more. This one here is the piecewise function above. Okay, that's pretty close to it. Okay, so you guys can see there are 2 functions here. I have an f of x equals x, and I have an f of x equals a negative x plus 2. Okay, there are 2 different functions that are involved in this, but I'm only using pieces of those functions. So how do I know what piece to use? Well, that's going to be this part over here that deals with our domain. I've got x less than 0, okay? Which if I think about this, if I divide this graph in half, this right here is the spot where x equals 0. And what this part's telling me, this first one, x less than 0, that's saying that on this side of the graph, I should have a specific function, okay? And what function should I have on this side of the graph? I should have my f of x equals x. Then on this side of the function, I should have, that's where my x values are greater than 0, okay? I should have negative x plus 2. Okay? So that's kind of explaining what that's telling us. This part here tells us the domain. This part here is telling us our domain, where those functions are. This part here tells me what the function is. Okay? Let's graph an example of this. All right. I've got f of x equals the square root of x plus 3, x plus 5, and I've got f of x equals 3. Okay? So those two functions should look familiar. Again, I've got f of x equals square root of x plus 5, and I got that from right here. F of x equals square root of x plus 5. I also have f of x equals 3. F of x equals 3. Okay, that's how I got that there. So my first step when I graph these is, I want to graph both of these functions lightly. Okay, graph the complete function lightly. So there's my square root function. I should have 0, 0, I moved this over 5. But there are my 3 points. Okay, if you guys remember our f of x equals square root of x plus 5, that's the one that we graphed on our bell ringer. So that should look familiar there. Okay, so I've lightly graphed the first one. Then I'm going to lightly graph my second one, which was my horizontal line. Okay, now after I've lightly graphed those, I need to identify my split point. -1 is my split point. And I want to draw a vertical line through that split point. So I'm going to draw a vertical line at -1. Okay? Now, just like before, on this side of the graph, I need one function, and on this side of the graph, I need one function. Okay? So on one side, up over here, I've got x is less than -1. So which of these two functions is less than -1? Well, on this side of the graph, that would be where my x values are less than -1. You can see I've got -2, -3, -4, -5. All of those numbers are less than -1. So that means that on this side of the graph, I need to have less than -1. I need to have my square root function. That's how those two kind of pair up there. Okay? Then on the right side of this line, those are the numbers where x is greater than -1. So I'm going to have this function on the right side. I'm going to have f of x equals 3 on the right side. Okay? So again, on this left side of the graph, I need to have this function. I'm going to darken that in. And then on the right side, I need to have this function. So I'm going to darken that in. Okay? Then I need to erase this blue part over here because I only want one function in each section. And I need to erase that red part of that function there. Okay? So if you guys watch, I'm going to do that here. I'm going to erase and darken in. So there it was originally. I erase on the right and draw it darker on the left. Erase on the right, draw it darker on the left. And I'm going to do the opposite with my horizontal function. I'm now going to erase on this side and darken it in on the right. So erase on the left, darken it on the right. Okay? Erase on the left, darken it on the right. Okay? And I know that because f of x equals 3 is on this side because that's where x is less than -1. This side is my square root of x plus 5 because x is less than -1 for my square root. Okay? Then there's only one other thing that we have to do with this. Okay? And the last thing that we have to do, it deals with these inequalities here again. Notice that one of them is just a greater than and one of them is a greater than or equal to. Remember, if we have a greater than or equal to, which we do right here, that's my square root, I have to have a filled in circle, which I already had there. Versus on this function, I have just a greater than sign. It's only a greater than sign. So that means that I need to have an open circle for that one there. Okay? Now, your final answer for this, you probably want to get rid of those arrows. If you leave the dashed line there, that's not a big deal, but definitely get rid of those arrows. Okay? So that's our final answer for graphing that. So again, important pieces. Identify your split point and identify what function needs to be on what side. Okay? Identify your split point, which is this number right here. There's -1. Okay? Identify your split point, draw a dashed line, and then identify which function needs to be on which side. Okay? All right. Then I want you guys to do this practice example. Go ahead and pause the video for a second. I want you guys to work at your table together. There should be talking. There should be communication. Work at your table together. See if you guys can get this. Once everybody has a chance to work it out, start the video again and I'll explain how to do it. Okay, hopefully I had a chance to pause the video so that you guys can attempt this one on your own. I'm going to go over how to do this real quick. Again, first thing, identify my split point. 0. Actually, hold on. Before I do that, let me graph this thing first. I'm sorry. Before I do that, let me graph it. I've got two functions. I've got f of x equals x minus 2 squared. And then I also have f of x equals x plus 1. Okay? A lot of people tell me this function looks confusing. Okay? That's not any of our parent functions, Mr. Schieber. It's not. Okay? This is something that is so simple that a lot of you guys forget how to graph it when you look at it. Remember, your f of x and y are the same thing, correct? So this is really a y equals x plus 1, okay? And I'm not joking, guys. A lot of people get messed up with this, okay? This is your y equals mx plus b, okay? It is just a line. So you're going to have a y-intercept at 1, and then my slope of this is 1. Okay, so that'd be 1 over 1. So I'm going to go up 1 to the right 1, 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 all the way through. And I'm then going to draw this line then. Okay, so that's my function there. All right, so I've graphed my first function. Now I need to graph this. Now this is a parabola. I know it's a parabola because it's got a squared there. Okay, and this parabola has a -2 that's on the inside, so that's horizontal, and that's going to shift this to the right 2. So instead of 0, 0, it's going to the right 2. Instead of 1, 1, it's going to the right 2. Okay? I'm going to graph all these points here. Okay, so there's my two functions. Okay, remember you want to lightly graph those because we're going to need to erase. Now I need to identify my split point. My split point is 0. So I'm going to draw a nice little dashed line. Okay? And then I need to ask myself, on this side, what function do I want? And on this side, what function do I want? Okay? Well, let me look at the right first. If I'm looking at the right side over here, okay, if I'm looking over here, that right side would be my values that are greater than 0, right? 1, 2, and 3 are greater than 0. So I'm looking for x to be greater than 0. Which would be my parabola. So I need to have my x minus 2 squared on the right, which means, and I need to check, but yes, x less than 0, that's going to be over here on the left. Okay? So I'm going to have my x plus 1 over here on the left. Okay? So that means over here on the left side, I need to erase my parabola. Okay? And then on the right side, I need to leave my red on the right, and I need to erase my blue part. I don't think I'm going to be able to erase this without erasing my parabola. Definitely not. Okay, so I'm going to have to redraw at this point here. Okay, that should be on the right side. And then on this left side over here, I should just have my line. Okay? So again, parabola is over here on the right, so I erase the blue, just leave the parabola. The line is over here on the left, so I'm going to erase the parabola part that I had and just have the blue part. Okay? Then there's one other thing we got to have here, and that will be if it's an open or closed circle on our ending. Okay? If I look, this has just a greater than. So my parabola is going to have an open circle. Okay? Then I look at my next one. This is just a less than. So my line is also going to just have an open circle. Okay? And I can kind of erase some of this work down here. And that is my final answer. Okay? This is definitely tough stuff, guys. Okay? Practice it. Work together on this. I promise you guys you will learn from each other if you work together on these. Okay? We do have one more example we're going to cover. So start the next video.